Welcome in to the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. Go by SEC Mike on Twitter. And joined as always by cousin Shane, who goes by Big Orange Vows on the Twitter machine. What you up to, you sick bastard?
What's going on, brother? Hotty toddy.
Yeah. So, hey, the fall camp preview series continues. Shane, I don't know if they're sensing a theme just yet, Shane, but we're starting with the teams that everyone's excited about. Their fan bases are on cloud nine. We've done Texas. We've done Oklahoma. Coming into the SEC, of course. We just did Missouri. Now we're on to Ole Miss, buddy. This is going to be another good one.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. I've seen a lot more Rebel love online these days, brother, because they are excited about their football team. They're hoping to launch off last season, and this is the year. That's kind of what we keep hearing, Mike. This is the year. This is the big dance. All the chips are in. Yada, yada, yada. It's time to put up or shut up.
Yeah, so let me start right there. We'll get into the fall camp series preview in just a second here, Shane. But again, I think it goes without saying that, we're very optimistic on a lot of these teams, particularly in the offseason. We don't like to be Debbie Downers when we don't have to be. So maybe we're a little overly optimistic on a lot of these teams. But I don't think it's that bold of a statement, Shane, to say this literally could be the best season in Ole Miss football history. Am I wrong by saying that?
Keep going, buddy. Keep going. They rewound and listened to it again, Mike. They put it up on volume 10. Absolutely. I think about Ole Miss and this program that we're going to see this year, brother. And I think about all the great players that have come through that university. I think of, just true legends all the way back from Archie Manning, Eli Manning, there's just been, There's been some damn dudes come through there, but they've not all been on campus at the same time. And I feel like this is the year, brother. This is the year that we are going to see the best football team ever assembled. It's like the Avengers, and Lane Kiffin's the ringleader here. And they finally assembled a team that can compete with the big boys.
Right, Lane Kiffin's the Nick Fury of the Ole Miss Rebels. So, let's get into it. Again, before we get into this upcoming season, we're so excited about. Real quick, Shane, last season, historic, first time in school history, won 11 football games in Oxford, won 11-2, lost to Alabama on the road 24-10, and got blown out by Georgia. Let's call it what it is, 52-17. But we're not hampering on that because we turned right around. We won an Egg Bowl. We beat Penn State's ass in the Cotton Bowl. Again, rolling high, bringing back a ton of production. So this is a big reason why there's so much. It's not just hype, Shane. This is substance. Ole Miss fans are not big fans of A&M. Let's call it what it is. But, it's all the A&M annual hype. It's based on nothing, basically. Not nothing, but just not results on the field. Ole Miss has brought results on the field. Hell, they're stealing players from A&M to get them even better, get to that pinnacle. So, again, there's reason for optimism. And if you look at this, Shane, I think this goes under the radar. I don't think people realize this. It's 5 years, Shane. Mm-hmm. There's 3 teams at the top of the SEC standings in wins. Obviously, Georgia. Obviously, Alabama. But number 3 is them Ole Miss Rebels. And I don't think enough people understand that. So it's remarkable the job Lane Kiffin's done. Again, this could be his best job ever. Let's kick it over. Lane Kiffin real quick here. He's 95-49 in 12 years of being a head coach. He's 34-15 though at Ole Miss. He's kicking ass down here. Did the same thing at FAU before getting here. He was 26-13 at Southern Cal, 28-15. And of course, Shane, I know you don't even want to think about it, but he was 7-6 at Tennessee. He actually did a pretty good job at Tennessee despite that record. But this was a coach, Shane. There's not many that get these big time jobs and struggle, get another chance, and turn out to be better than they were before. But it goes without saying that's exactly where Lane Kiffin is, and he is. They call him the transfer portal king here. He is working it like no one else. Again, Georgia Alabama, LSU, these are the teams that have owned the sport, at least in the SEC, the last 10 or so years. But Ole Miss not been there, so they found a creative way to get there, and it's all about this season. Otherwise, this may be the last team that goes all in the portal if they don't get it done.
There's a lot of money on this one, brother. It's gambling. That's what it is. Boosters took a gamble. Fans took a gamble. They put all the chips in. I know I said that earlier, but that's kind of the sentiment here. It's like we've got to win. We've got to win. We got to get to a college football playoff and actually compete for that national championship. By God, some of them think they better win it, and I feel like that's a lot of pressure. You know, I've talked about some of these other coaches that are on the hot seats, and Lane Kiffin is not on the hot seat, but I would venture to say he's under just as much pressure as some of these other coaches are because of what they've created here. They've created Frankenstein, and the lightning storm's on its way. And if he doesn't get some of the electricity coming through there, then all of a sudden these boosters are going to say, well, why the hell am I paying so much money?
Right. You're starting to sound like me on a Paul Bob show, Shade. I'm proud of you. All right, real quick, let's hit on their new additions on the coaching staff, Shay. They've added this co-defensive coordinator, secondaries coach. I think this will be instrumental when we get to the transfers. You'll see what they've added to shore up the secondary, but they've got themselves a new coach back here, Brian Brown, and I didn't realize this at the time, Shay. This kind of went under my radar, but he's a multi-Broyles Award nominee. That's the award they give annually to the top assistant coach in the country. He was at Cincinnati last season as associate head coach and defensive coordinator. Before that, he was at Louisville as a defensive coordinator, defensive backs coach the last 4 years. And he played at Ole Miss. Again, I love when these former players come back to coach at the alma mater. So this is a hire that's going under the radar here. Brian Brown, co-defensive coordinator with Pete Golding, of course, and new secondary coach. They added a new special teams coordinator, Jake Schnover. Jake Schnover here. He was at Arkansas State the last 2 years as special teams coordinator, Kansas before that, special teams coordinator, and Bowling Green the 2 years prior as special teams coordinator. So a very experienced special teams coordinator. And then last but not least, a new tight ends coach. Familiar name here, Shane. Joe Cox played quarterback at Georgia. He was at Bama the last 2 years as their tight ends coach. Mm-hmm. He was at South Carolina in 2020 under Will Muschamp, and he was at Colorado State before that under Mike Bobo. So he played for Mike Bobo at Georgia as well. So Joe Cox got a ton of SEC experience, now bringing him to Oxford. So I like these additions we made on the coaching staff too.
I love the fact that the core hasn't changed, but they've added pieces around them to kind of change maybe some of the way that they plan for games, maybe some nuances that they've not been planning for. I always love this about coaching staffs. If you can maintain your offense and defense, but you can bring in little pieces to help you amplify that, I feel like that's what Lane's doing. He's playing ahead of the game here. Let's get some guys in here so we can get some fresh blood, some fresh ideas, and maybe make this a perfect season for Ole Miss.
And I don't know about you, Shane, but anytime we lose to someone, I want to hire someone off that staff. Say, hey, how'd they beat us? Give us the details there, so that don't happen again. They're getting that in Joe Cox.
Absolutely, man. That's what you do. Can't beat them, hire them.
All right, let's get to the returning production. This is a big reason why. Again, everyone highlights the transfers, highlights the schedule, which we'll get to, but returning production is paramount, and I think it's far more important than adding transfers is who you got returning. We are returning over 67% of our total offense, Shane. That's number 2 in the SEC. Ole Miss, I know we've hyped up Missouri on the last one. If Missouri's not the best offense in the SEC, it's going to be Ole Miss. Yep. I mean, to me, this is neck and neck, and it's led, of course, by Jackson Dart. He's back. 92.5% of our passing yards are back. 23 touchdowns, 5 picks last season, 3,300 passing yards for Jackson Dart. Now, here's where we take a slight hit here. Rushing yards, 45% are back. That is 6th in the SEC. Of course, Junkins went to Ohio State, but we got Ulysses Bentley back, Shane. Mm-hmm. 540 yards last year on the ground. He's our leading returning rusher with 4 touchdowns. Receiving yards, here's where we go shine, Shade. Trey Harris back, 64.8% of our receiving yards are back. That's number 3 in the SEC. Harris led the way with 985 yards, 8 touchdowns for the Rebels. And Ole Miss offensive line snaps returning. This is another key stat that I love. 64% back, number 6 in the SEC. Bringing back 2 guys, Shane, Jeremy James and Caleb Warren with over 800 snaps last year, and Micah Pettis over 600 snaps. Had he not got, he got a little banged up. Otherwise, he's right there with them with 800 plus snaps. And again, we'll get to the transfers, but they absolutely loaded up on the offensive line. They loaded up at receiver, even though they didn't need them. And they absolutely loaded up at running back. So again, when you bring back number 2 most offensive production and you're not sitting on your hands, you're adding to it. They're just so unique down there, Shane. We got players. I think a lot of SEC coaches, they're afraid to bring in competition because they don't want to upset the starters. I think Kiffin says, well, hell, if you're afraid of competition, you're going to jump in the portal. We'll just sign someone to replace you.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what he's doing. And I think, we're going to get to here in a minute, but I think the fact some of this returning talent is the reason we were so well in the portal. I mean, he'll tell you, Lane Kiffin will tell you, if it weren't for Jackson Dart, we wouldn't have half these guys, So
right.
Letting you know, that's why I feel better about this program than I have in the past. It's not just a whole bunch of new guys on a new team. It's a lot of guys that have been around that have already kind of set those expectations, bringing in pieces to help them out. He did it with the coaching staff. He's now doing it with the players. This is why so many folks are high on Ole Miss this season.
Right. Now, defense, a little bit different story, Shane. But again, our defense wasn't that good anyway. Yeah. So only 46% back. That is 9th in the SEC. So, we're not dead last or anything. We're bringing back 46% of our tackles. That's number 11 in the SEC. Tackles for loss, half of them back, 50%. So that's 11th in the SEC. Sacks, 52%. That is 10th in the SEC. Interceptions, 46%. That's number 8 in the SEC. And passes defended, 36% are back, number 12 in the SEC. But you know why I ain't panicking, Shane? Because this is year 2, P. Golding.
Yeah.
And I think he really got a sense of, all right, the pieces I inherited, who can play in this system, who can't, and where we can't, again, maybe that's not fair, but just where we're not up to an elite SEC standard, let's attack that via the transfer portal. They absolutely did that. So again, even though we're not incredibly high, number 9 in the SEC in defensive returning production, I ain't sweating it because I know the pieces they added via the transfer portal will really help this unit out this season.
Yeah, not worried about it. And like you said, it wasn't that good last year, so maybe a clean start's not a bad idea, Mike.
Sometimes I need a clean start. You know what? Let's just start this show over again. You know what?
That's why we're not live, Mike, so we can keep doing this.
All right, real quick, let's get to the transfer portal, Shane. We'll highlight the guys that left, and really only one that I think will be a huge impact, and that is, of course, Quinshaw Junkins. And it depends on who you ask. Some people think it'll be addition by subtraction here, get rid of him. He's off to Ohio State. Wish him well, but ain't going to cry over that. Joshua Harris, defensive lineman, he went to North Carolina. He was a guy that transferred in. Now he's transferred out. Kyron Heath, tight end, went to Southern Miss. Caden Costa, backup kicker, went to Memphis. Zachary Franklin, who we had high hopes for him, he transferred in, but now he's at Illinois. He didn't make much of an impact. And Jam Miller, running back, went to Oregon State. Mm-hmm. Again, those are guys we're highlighting left the program. Only one I'm seeing that is a key player is Judkins.
Yeah, absolutely. And we brought in like 13 to fill him in. We just need 1 or 2 to hit,
Yeah, so let's get to where the fun is, Shane. Where the guys we've added, transfer portal addition. My goodness, Shane. 24/7 Sports rates this as the number 1 transfer portal class in the country. On 3 has got it as the number 3 class in the country. What the hell's your problem on 3? Give him a boost here.
Where did Lane hurt you? Where did Lane hurt you?
But again, top 3 ain't bad here. So let's get into it. Starting, and Shane, there's just so many of these damn guys. What I did is I broke it down by position so we can kind of wrap our heads around it. But again, that defense, I wanted to start there because that's where Ole Miss has got to get better if they want to get to where we think they can, college football playoff, not just get there, but win some games, maybe even win a national championship. And for me, it starts with Walter Nolan, defensive lineman from Texas A&M. He played down there 2 years, 5-star prospect. Everybody in the country wanted him, Shane. 66 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 5 sacks in his time at A&M. And I realize those numbers are not going to blow anyone's mind, but having a player like him, it's not about stats. It's about blowing up the offensive line, the focus of the offense. You have to know where Walter Nolan is at all times, and he just creates so much havoc that the rest of the defenders can really make plays. That's the true value of Walter Nolan. And, oh, by the way, Shade, it ain't just Walter Nolan. They added Florida's best pass rusher, Princely Umanamian. I hope I finally nailed that right. 99 tackles at Florida, Shane. 24 and a half tackles for loss. 15 sacks. Beast. And again, lining him up next to Walter Nolan is just going to increase that production. I think this is just when you think they got the top 2 defensive linemen in the portal, Shane.
Yeah.
They also added a guy I know this is a name no one's going to be familiar with. Jacksonville State defensive lineman. He was there just 1 year, Shane. Chris Hardy, 60 tackles, 16 tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks, and an interception. On the defensive line, Shane, we got us one hell of a trio of defensive linemen. Plug them in. And again, this is how we change the face of a defense here.
Well, Mike, you got to remember, after that Georgia game, this is exactly what he was asking for. When he talks about the disparaging, difference between, did I use that word right? Oh, I thought that's why you laughed.
It's fun. You nailed it.
Yeah, so I think I got one more I'm going to use here in a little bit. But the difference, here's the deal, buddy, is like that's what he was talking about. We're not as big and bad or as fast as Georgia or Alabama. They're now, because what they did is they went out there and found those dudes and brought them to their football team.
Right. And anyone that missed it, I'm sure most of you, if you listen to this, you're well aware. But Kiffin basically said after that game, hell, we got 1 5-star, they got 24.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen when you got this. So we went out here, we got us some 5-stars, Shane. Linebacker Chris Paul, he was Arkansas's best linebacker. 137 tackles the last 2 years, Shane. 15 tackles for loss, 6 sacks. I mean, he's just a beast. Now here is where we get to the defensive backs. We really needed to shore them up. And instead of adding one guy, 2 guys, Shane, we got like 6 difference makers here, so bear with me here. Isaiah Hamilton from Houston, 90 tackles, 10 passes defended, 1 sack, 3 forced fumbles, 11 interceptions, and 3 pick sixes Isaiah Hamilton had at Houston. He's probably going to be a plug-in day 1 starter at the corner spot. We got Trey Amos from Alabama last year, Shane. 71 tackles, 1 pick, 18 passes defended in his he was 1 year at Bama and 3 years at Louisiana. We got Key Lawrence, safety from Oklahoma. 157 tackles in his college career, 3 picks, 13 passes defended, 6 forced fumbles in 3 seasons at Oklahoma. Yam Banks, wild name, Shane, but wild production here at South Alabama. 147 tackles, 7 picks, 17 passes defended, 16 tackles for loss. My God, this guy's all over the field. 3 forced fumbles and a touchdown. Lewis Moore, the safety from Indiana, just last season, Shane, 82 tackles, 3 picks, 3 forced fumbles, a defensive touchdown, and then Brandon Turnage, he was at Tennessee the last couple of years. He was at Bama before that. 48 tackles, a pick, 6 passes defended, last 3 seasons at Tennessee. So we're just throwing all these guys in there. And remember, they're going to get coached by a multi-time Broyles nominee, which goes to the best assistant coach in the country. That we could be working with a special unit here.
Well, this is why everybody hates Ole Miss, I mean, I say 10 years ago, Mike, I never hated Ole Miss. I said, hey, good luck. I hope they do well kind of scenario, But
right.
Now you're going around the world or the country here and you're stealing their best players out of their backyard. And you're wondering why everyone's mad at Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin. Well, this is why. Just look at that. Just look at all that talent they just went out there and pillaged.
Right.
There's
and
the other one.
Well done, well done. And that's only one side of the football. So let's kick it over to so these are the offensive additions they added via the transfer portal. And for me, this is the guy, we've mentioned it many times on this show, but I think it's going unrecognized by so many people nationally, and I don't understand why. The key offensive player they added, in my mind, is Juice Wells, receiver at South Carolina. Barely played last year because of the foot injuries. He played against Georgia for a half. He was unguardable. And the year prior, Shane, 71 catches, 965 yards, 7 touchdowns in essentially a season there at South Carolina.
The half they beat Georgia, you know.
And hell, I mean, who knows? I mean, we can't sit here and what if, but had he played the whole game, they may have won that football game.
South Carolina would have. I think they would have won a lot of games. Him and Leggett. I mean, it would have been. That's why we're so damn high. I mean, we've got Trey, and now we got him running around. Jeez Louise.
Right, and who I think, Shane, we'll get to the tight end here in a minute, but I think he's all SEC tight end, Caden Prescorn. So weapons. They also added North Texas receiver Jordan Smart. Shane, 40 catches, 561 yards, 2 touchdowns at North Texas. Florida Atlantic receiver Devin Price, 12 catches, 179 yards, and a touchdown last year. And then 4 offensive linemen to shore up that unit. Again, we got 3 quality guys coming back. We're adding 4 more. 2 off Washington, Shane. And Washington's offensive line won the Joe Moore Award. That's the award they give out annually to the best offensive line in the country. Nate Kalepo, 15 starts, again, for the best offensive line in the country, at least according to the Joe Moore Award. And Julius Bulow, 31 games, 14 starts at Washington. These guys could be plug-and-play starters. Diego Pounds, he has 8 starts in 13 games at North Carolina.
That's a good lineman name.
and Jaquan Scott, 37 starts at Southern Miss. So these ain't just bodies we're adding. We're adding guys with a ton of experience, and 2 of them went to the college football playoff last year.
Golly. It's you know, this new NCAA game's coming out. Yeah. And this is going to be what my team looks like, Mike, you know, as I'm sitting down there at Rice trying to build a dynasty, you know, just all kinds of linemen coming from all over the country.
Right. And, hey, we ain't done yet, Shane. 4 running backs added, too. We needed some help here. We're bringing back Henry. This is how wild college football is, Shane. Henry Parrish played at Ole Miss, went to Miami. Now he's back at Ole Miss. He brings over 2,000 rushing yards in his college career, 15 touchdowns. He's back. Logan Diggs from LSU last year. He got banged up. He's not going to be available right out the gate, but Kiffin's being smart about this. I think they're going to try to bring him back at the end of the season and have some added depth if they, make a deep run in the college football
during
playoff.
That LSU game.
Exactly. He's got over 1,700 rushing yards in his career, 14 touchdowns. Rashad Amos, Shane, he played at South Carolina. He played at Miami of Ohio. Now he's down at Ole Miss. He's got just short of 1,200 rushing yards, 13 touchdowns. And Dominique Thomas from Clemson, who he had 147 yards and a touchdown there at Clemson. And then, last but not least, Shane, we probably needed another body at tight end. So we went down to Virginia Tech and got Daquan Wright from Virginia Tech, 47 catches, 574 yards, just for a little depth there at tight end. You know what?
Well, and going back on the running backs, this is why we call him the Portal King. I mean, he called his shot. He said, hey, we're going to go out there and probably get a couple of running backs, and then he goes out and gets the best running backs that are in the portal class. So this is, if this works, it's going to be unstoppable.
Who needs to recruit high school? Yeah. You know what I mean?
I mean, he's still doing that, but what I'm saying? But it doesn't matter anymore because I look at these kids committing and everything, and you're just like, yeah, but will he be there in 3 years? Will he be there? I'm making excuses on why he may not be there for 4 years.
Right. And I'm just kidding when I say recruiting because, again, they signed the number 17 class in the country. That's 10th in the SEC. No 5-stars in this class, Shane, but they got Cam Franklin, the number 23 defensive lineman in the country, Jeffrey Rush, the number 30 defensive lineman in the country, William Eccles, the number 16 interior offensive lineman, Norrell White, number 11, an athlete. He could play receiver or defensive back. And Cameron Beavers, love that name, number 34, interior offensive lineman. And then they added this guy. I keep hearing buzz about him, Shane. JUCO receiver, signed with LSU out of high school, had to go to junior college. Now he's at Ole Miss. Deion Smith, number 2, junior college prospect in the country. And I'll throw up his stats here, Shay. You ain't gonna believe this. I know it's JUCO ball, but some of these stats are just incredible. Deion Smith. Against Pearl River, he had 4 catches, 147 yards. Against East Mississippi, that's the last chance you, Shay.
Yeah.
8 catches, 156 yards, 2 touchdowns. How about his game against Northwest Mississippi? 13 catches, 235 yards.
Damn.
I mean, this guy averaged about 2 touchdowns per game and about 150 yards. Some fans are claiming, I don't know if I'm quite buying this shade. They're saying this kid's one and done, but we're so loaded at receiver, just throw in the best junior college receiver in the country. just add him to the mix. You know what?
It seems like back in the day, this was the transfer portal. Is getting some of these kids from Kansas. Maybe they'll hit. I've watched a few. I mean, you look at Cordero Patterson as a prime example, as a guy that came in and then all of a sudden set the SEC on fire. So, yeah, you never know. This may be the one. There's a lot of Deons running around the SEC this year, huh?
Yeah, there is, buddy. So, hey, let's get into the projected offensive depth chart, ranking the position groups for the Ole Miss Rebels, Shane. And I don't think there's any surprise here, but I'm going to go with receivers on the offensive side of the football. This is an outstanding group with Trey Harris back, a preseason All-American. Jordan Watkins is also back, 136 catches, 1776 yards, 9 touchdowns for the Ole Miss Rebels. And we got 2 former star recruits, Shane, as freshmen that are back. They ain't running from the competition. Aiden Williams, he was a camp standout last year. Mm-hmm. He had just 4 catches and 80 yards last year, but he can make a big impact. Caden Lee, another big-time sophomore, 5 catches, 114 yards. We're adding Juice Wells. We're adding Deion Smith. We're adding Jordan Smart. We're adding Devin Price. Oh, my goodness, Shay, they just added another transfer. I forgot about him. Isaiah Harthrop from Southern Illinois, 1,300 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns in his college career. So just add him to the mix, Shay. This may be, I know we touted Missouri. It's Missouri and it's Ole Miss, right?
Yeah.
In my mind, as the best 2 receiver groups in the country.
They're neck and neck, absolutely. And that's one that I like. Like, I was thinking as you were talking, I like Mizzou's depth a little bit more, but Ole Miss is very top-heavy, if you will.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They've got a couple of dudes that also will be playing on Sunday probably for the next 15 years.
Exactly. Now, next, Shane, we could go many different ways here, but I'm going quarterbacks. Just, Jackson Dart, so outstanding. Could be an All-American. Probably should be All-SEC. He's back. Over 7,600 passing yards in his career, 52 touchdowns. Oh, by the way, Shane, over 1,000 rushing yards in his college career with another 11 touchdowns. I think he's the toughest quarterback in the country. We're bringing back some backups, too, that have been here before. Walker Howard, he's back. Austin Simmons, and then A.J. Maddox. So a nice collection of talent and arguably the best, 3 quarterbacks. I don't know about the best, but probably top 3 in the SEC right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And deep. I mean, it's not just 1 or 2 guys. I mean, you've got a couple of dudes in there that could play at a lot of these SEC schools.
Right. And next I went offensive line, Shane. And maybe I will put them a little bit higher, but it's kind of hard to figure out.
Big guys, I get it.
Yeah. Again, we got Caleb Warren back, Micah Pettis, and Jeremy James. Again, 2 of those guys over 800 snaps back. Caleb Warren's a 3-year starter on the interior. Micah Pettis is a 2-year starter at right tackle. And Jeremy James, again, 847 snaps. And then we're bringing back Reese McIntyre. He had 339 snaps last year. Jade Williams, he had 285 snaps last year. And Bryson Sanders, a former Tiger recruit, just 15 snaps. But I believe he was a redshirt freshman last year. He's got a bright future. And then all those stud transfers, Nate Caleppo and Julius Bulow from Washington, Diego Pounds from North Carolina, Jaquan Scott from Southern Miss. I'm very confident in this unit, Shane, but it's hard for me to predict who's going to be starting because we got guys with starting experience. We got guys with promise.
Yeah.
We're bringing in transfers that have started. This is going to be a challenge trying to get the right five on the field. That it's a good challenge to have, but it is going to be a challenge, I think. All right, next, Shane, I'm going running backs. Really good group here for the Ole Miss Rebels. Again, I think this is one to circle. I mean, Ole Miss fans well aware of Uceli's Bentley, but he's never had that opportunity to shine as the go-to running back. He's not done it yet, but he's just not had that opportunity. And again, I know we added all these transfers, but if there's a name to watch, Shane, that could be like a breakout star of college football next year, I think it's Uceli's Bentley. He's got over 2,000 rushing yards in his college career, 23 touchdowns, and he's got 53 catches, 385 receiving yards. So again, we'll see how they utilize him. They've added so many pieces, but I think he's a big-time player.
He's had flashes. I mean, you think about that Auburn game. I mean, this is a guy that can – absolutely be a bell cow, but I do like I like how he's kind of like a Swiss Army knife, can do it a little bit of all of it. So I would love to see him get more involved in that passing game.
And you just have to believe with Jackson Dart and all these receivers. I mean, there's going to be lanes for him to take over. You know,
that's why you have no trouble recruiting running backs here. It's like, you know what I'm saying? You're not going to have 8 in the box when you go against Ole Miss.
Right. So we already mentioned the transfers: Henry Parrish, Logan Diggs, Rashad Amos, Dominique Thomas. I mean, we're loaded. And then at tight ends, love Caden Priest-Corin, 85 catches, 1,130 yards, 11 touchdowns. He's a do-it-all tight end for the Ole Miss Rebels. Hudson Wolf, a former touted recruit, and Daquan Wright that we added, the transfer from Virginia Tech. This is a hell of a unit as well.
Yeah, don't love them too much as they sit down here in the cellar of Michael's rankings.
All right, so for the defensive side of the football, Shay, defensive line, I'm leading the way there, and I think that's where you want to be leading the way with Jared Ivey and J.J. Pegues, both back, starters from last year. Ivey led the way with 23 tackles for loss in his Ole Miss career, 10.5 sacks, 123 tackles. J.J. Pegues, I've always loved his potential. Breakout candidate, 84 career tackles, 15 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks. We're also bringing back some experienced players, Xavion Harris and Akilo Stone, along with going with the transfers, Walter Nolan from A&M, Princely from Florida, and Chris Hardy from Jacksonville State. Oh, and by the way, don't forget the freshman, Shane, Cam Franklin and Jeffrey Rush, both top 30 defensive linemen in the country. Love the experience, love the transfers, love the freshmen. This, to me, this group's got it all.
Yeah, absolutely. It's experience for me, and the depth, the competitive depth. So, you know, now that one of them goes out, you know, Walter Nolan goes out, you've got another guy coming in that was a starter last year. So I think that is a huge sigh of relief for Ole Miss fans.
And I think linebackers, Shannon, I think they were a little bit of a weakness last year. I think they're going to be a big strength this year with bringing back Suntarine Perkins, 5-star freshman. He lived up to the billing, Shane. 38 tackles, 5.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks. As a true freshman going into his sophomore year, he's going to be a star. Kari Coleman's back. He's got 142 tackles, 31 tackles for loss, 11.5 sacks. We got Tyler Banks back, TJ Dudley, and Chris Paul from Arkansas, elite player, and Raymond Collins, a 4-star junior college player. Add him to the mix, Shane. I think we got us a great core of linebackers in Pete Golding's defense.
I'm liking the secondary. I'm surprised they're down here. You know, it's like this is a defense that may get Pete a head coaching job. You know what I'm saying? You listen to it. If you have that turnaround with these guys, then don't be surprised if he's not on a few short lists at the end of the season.
Right, and the only reason I got defensive backs last, Shane, again, I try not to get overly excited by transfers because I think as fans we sit here and we say, we added this guy, we added that guy, this guy, that guy. And it's like a video game where you just plug them in, we're golden, right? But, you know, they run a complex defense too. And, you know, Alabama fans will tell you all about coverage bust by Pete Golding's unit. So, again, adding all these transfers, we'll see how they come together. They got to figure out who's starting and if they can get the scheme down here as we get into SEC play. That's the only reason, because I love all the went on the transfers we've added, but we also got returning starters Trey Washington and John Saunders back, Shane. Trey Washington's got 137 tackles, 4 picks, 2 forced fumbles in his Ole Miss career. John Saunders, 132 tackles, 8 picks, 20 passes defended, 3 tackles for loss. And we're also bringing back Chris Graves, Richard O'Brien, Jadon Kane to go with a elite bunch of transfers here.
Yeah.
We're going to have us a unit, no doubt. But to me, it's kind of like hard to rank these guys until I know who's starting, who's backing up.
Right.
That's again, this is a hell of a problem to have.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have. But dude, they like I said, it seems like I keep saying the same thing over and over, but this is exactly what we're saying. These transfer portals didn't really fix a lot of holes. They just went on top of existing talent, and now we've created competition back there. So it just makes the defense better. And, I'm going against Juice. Oh, yeah, I'm going against Trey. It's like iron sharpens iron. It's like, as Nick Saban used to say,
Right. And then at kicker, Shane, we're golden here. We got Caden Davis back. 18 of 23 last year on his field goals. When Lane he rarely does he kick it, especially on fourth and short and what have you. But when they do, Caden will convert for you and bring you back our punter, Frazier Mason, 48. Don't even need him, Shane. I'm not going to read his stats. We don't need him. But how about top 10 players, Shane, in the EA Sports video game from the Ole Miss? This was difficult. This was the toughest one.
Let me
yet,
ask you,
Shane.
Mike, before you do this one, is this the highest rated NCAA football game team we've done so far?
That's a great question, Shane.
You put some numbers up there. I mean, there are some dudes on here that if you would have moved them back to their existing teams would have been in your top 10 list. But the fact they're all together now with the Ole Miss Rebels here, is this the highest ranked team?
I think it is, Shane. I think it is. So let's get into it. Again, I don't have any 99s, though. We've had a couple 99s on these rankings, but we do got, I think he's the best, most overlooked player in the country, perhaps. Trey Harris, receiver. I'm giving him a 97. So again, he's an elite player. First game he ever played for Ole Miss, Shane, last year, the season opener, he had 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my God, he's a sensation. And I was I was surprised he came back. But money year, he'll get it done. Give me Jackson Dart as the second best player, Shane, 96 overall.
Yeah,
he could be the best player on the football team and maybe the best quarterback in the SEC this year. Give me Walter Nolan, Shane, at a 95, elite interior defensive lineman. Juice Wells, give me a 95 for him as well. He is awesome. This may surprise you, Shane, but I'm going the tight end, Caden Prescorn, who does it all. Lane Kiffin really knows how to use a tight end. Give me a 94 for Caden Prescorn.
I think he lives with Lane Kiffin now or something, right? You notice like he's in family photos and shit, so he's just kind of moved in.
I think so too, Shane. Linebacker Chris Pupal, give me a 93 overall for the transfer. Princely, give me a 93 for him as well. Nate Caleppo, the transfer from Washington on the offensive line, give me a 90. Jordan Watkins is back. I mean, all this talent. We haven't even hit on Jordan Watkins much at all, the slot receiver. Give me a 90 for him. He's been highly productive. And then, again, this may be a little bit of a swing here, Shane, but I think he's going to be a breakout candidate. Rating will be a little bit lower when you get the game in your hands, but if they update, how these players do in reality, I think he's going to shoot up the rankings. Give me Yasilis Bentley at a 90 as well. Again, I know that's probably a lower than some fans want, but I think he's going to have a huge year.
Yeah, no, dude, absolutely huge year. Is there anybody that, because I know there was like probably 2 or 3 that you were right there on the fringe of putting in here. Is there somebody maybe just barely missed the cut? Probably a 90 as well, but maybe like
I would put Sundarine Perkins, the true sophomore linebacker. He was incredible last year. I think if he was a junior, he'd be in this top 10. That's how the game usually works, Shay. You have it's a progression. You don't just come out the gate 99, but I would throw him into the mix.
It's awareness, you got to get your awareness numbers up.
He's one that really jumps out to me. I'd probably put him up there. Let me see. Some of these defensive backs, Shane, I'm telling you, I think that the ones that are going to hit, like Isaiah Hamilton, I think he'll be solid. Key Lawrence, Yam Banks. I mean, a lot of these guys just missed the cut for me.
Okay. Yeah, it's going to be a loaded team, man. So if you're on NCAA, the football game, you think this offense is A+, right?
Oh, yeah.
Defense, what would you say?
Probably, with all these transfers, it's going to sound crazy, Shane, but I'd probably give it an A-.
A-. So would you give it overall an A+ or an A?
A.
Yeah.
I think overall A.
Whew, loaded team, brother. Loaded team.
That's why they better not whip in, Kiffin. So, biggest camp question, Shane, before we get to the schedule, for me, it's finding the right pieces in the secondary. I think that'll be critical to this team. Finding the right five on the offensive line, getting the defensive front seven to gel with all the new pieces, and really, I mean, something similar we said with Missouri, handling hype, handling expectations. I mean, remember we had Neil McCready in studio, Rebel Grove, outstanding interview. Go check it out if you haven't seen it. But basically, he said, hell, there's not a single Ole Miss fan that I've talked to that would accept 9-3.
Yeah.
And 5 years ago, that's the second best record in school history. I mean, this is, again, people think it's crazy. I'm sitting here saying, Ole Miss ain't a playoff team. Mm-mm. They're a national championship team. They think that's damn crazy, but I think they're going to find out that that is what this team is capable of if they put all these pieces together. And again, I'm going over these camp questions. The questions are, you got all this talent. What are you going to do with it? That's a hell of a lot better talent issue than some of these teams we've hit on where we don't got an offensive line. Mm-hmm. We don't got a backup here. We don't got a starter here. That's not the problem at Ole Miss. The problem is, and I don't even know if it's a problem is the right word, but the question is, what are we going to do with all this talent?
Yeah. No, I think mine. I think it's just chemistry. You mentioned Last Chance U, and that's one thing about that damn show. It's just there's a handful of divas out there, and you're just trying to keep them all reined in. Is that kind of what we have here with Ole Miss? Is this a team that, when everything's going good, everything's good, but as soon as you hit a little turbulence, there's a big word. Is this a team that falls apart? So I think that's the kicker when you have like those old traditional teams that we grew up to watching, man. These guys were there 3-4 years together with each other. There was more buy-in with the program. You're seeing less and less of that, but you do see it on successful teams when they all get behind it and they're all 110% in. We talk about all the chips being in. It's not just the players. It's or the coaching staff or the fans. It's about the team. Are they all in 24/7?
And how do they respond if and when adversity strikes?
It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Mm-hmm. This is SEC football. You're gonna find a game you're down in the third quarter, or you may even lose a game. How do you bounce back from that? That's what I'm worried about with Ole Miss.
Right. Well, again, that's a good question to have, Shay, to have all this hype and expectations. So let's get into the schedule breakdown, and as always, in case this is your first camp preview you've witnessed here, win, loss, or toss-up is how we designate the games, and before we get to picking them, Shane. But right now, again, this is another reason I like Ole Miss. So many games on this schedule that I think, as of today, we're recording this in mid-June here, Shane, should be wins for Ole Miss. No surprise, right out the gate. That top entire row, they're all laughers here. Furman, MTSU, at Wake Forest, Georgia Southern, win. These have got to be wins.
Yep.
Kentucky at home. Kentucky's going to be tough. You get them. It's another break from the schedule makers. First SEC game. You're getting it at home. At South Carolina, that can always be tough, but that's got to be a win. At Arkansas, and I got the Egg Bowl. It's at home. Mississippi State. I don't want to call it in shambles, but they're in rebuild mode.
Yeah.
Win, 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 win. These are games that should be wins. I got 8 listed as should be wins. Do you disagree with any of those? Would you add any to the list?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Which one was your last one? You said Mississippi State. Did you say Florida is a must win or is a win?
I did not.
Oh man, you love him Gators. That's the only one I'd argue right there. I think that should be a win.
So you got 9 should be.
No, I got
again. Remember what? And hey, I'm not. You may not be wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not calling you out. But again, remember Neil McCree said, "Hell, no one's taking 9." That's why he's saying it.
Yeah.
Because they're looking at this schedule saying none of these teams can touch us.
Yeah.
None of them. Out of the 9 we just mentioned, which may be fair. So for toss-ups, Shane, I got at LSU.
Yeah.
I got Oklahoma at home. And I got at Florida. And if that Florida game was in Oxford, that's a should-be win for me.
Mm-hmm.
But just the Swamp, I don't know. I get nostalgic about this. Going on the road, Shane, right trap game, right before rivalry. Who knows what Lane Kiffin said or tweeted that week is going to, he's going to mock Billy. He's going to mock this guy, mock that guy. Could be a big distraction. So my toss-ups at LSU, Oklahoma, at Florida, and you've already disagreed with Florida. Would you put at LSU or Oklahoma at home as a win or should be a win or unlikely to win?
No, I got those as tosses. I've got LSU as a toss, Oklahoma as a toss, Georgia as a toss.
Why do you hate Georgia? I'm trying to figure. You got Georgia losing every damn game they're playing.
I don't have them losing. I just said it should be a toss. I don't think you should just pencil it in. This isn't the same 2 teams that faced last year. There's a reason that we're so high on Ole Miss because they didn't have the players the last time they met. And guess what, Mike? They went out and got the damn players. So I think it should be a toss-up game.
Okay, well, I have it as a likely loss, so I'll just cut ahead there. But all right, so let's get into it, Shane. Schedule. Game by game predictions here. And again, I mean, I don't even know what in the hell to say about Furman, MTSU, Wake Forest, and Georgia Southern. I mean, I hope I'm the best. I'm sure they got a player or two that will be in the SEC next year when we steal them away.
Yeah.
But if Ole Miss did not beat all these teams by 30 plus, I will be very disappointed in Ole Miss.
I'm talking about bloodbaths here, man. And what's great about this, Mike, is not a lot of SEC teams have that kind of gradual tune-up, if you will. First month of the season, it's like we can finally put all the pieces together, see what's working, see what's not working, before we jump into SEC play. So I think that schedule, even though daunting toward the tail end of it, I think is very favorable at the first half.
Right, and you got to love it. I mean, Ole Miss got to buy for an entire month before the season gets going here. So, I apologize. I should have mentioned this. As always, I mean, we say this every damn show, but nobody gets it. It's in the comments. It's all on social media. They don't understand. We are picking these games as best case scenario, optimistic. Shane really does it through a fan's eyes here, so that's how we pick these. But even if you're a state fan, Shane, and you hate Ole Miss with everything you got, I don't think a single one of them, if they're being honest with themselves, thinks Ole Miss is losing any of those first 4. So
no.
Win, 4-0 right out the gate. But here's where it gets interesting because we know you are very high on Kentucky, Shane. They're bringing back more than anybody on the defensive side of the football in the entire SEC. Mark Stoops, I give him a hard time, but one thing you can't say about him is he's always got a tough, hard-nosed defense.
Right.
And I think that this will be the case this year. Hell, they could be a top 3 defense in the SEC this year. They're bringing in Brock Vandagriff, bringing in a new offensive coordinator, so there's going to be new wrinkles. And Brock Vandagriff could be the star of the, the breakout star, I should say, of the entire SEC, 5-star, just couldn't play because he was sitting behind Carson Beck, who most have as the best quarterback in top NFL quarterback prospect in the entire country. So, hell, Brock Vandagriff could be the second best quarterback in the entire country for all we know. But I ain't buying any of that, Shane. This game's in Oxford. Lane Kiffin, Mark Stoops. I'll take Lane Kiffin every day of the week. I'm kind of kidding here. I think this is I don't know if trap game's the right word, but
yeah,
I could realistically see a scenario where Ole Miss is like a 2-touchdown favorite, and then they only win this game by 3 to 7 points. I mean, I really think Kentucky could give them a really good ball game.
Yeah, and you think about sometimes that these teams have met. It's come down to last drives or who made the most mistakes kind of scenario here. Yeah, right. I'm obviously we're doing this from a fan perspective and we're doing it optimistically. So you're not worried about Kentucky, but I do feel that this is the first game of the year where adversity kind of creeps in and maybe some mistakes are made because Kentucky has an opportunity to make you one-dimensional. They got a fantastic defensive front. What does it look like when you can't run freely? Then all of a sudden you're just relying on Jackson Dart's arm, which he could do it. But I that's what I like about this game. It is a true test, and it ramps up because the next few weeks it's all on after that. There's no off weeks after this one. So, but I do like Ole Miss, and I like them big.
Yeah, so 5-0 right out the gate. Then we go at South Carolina, Shane. Again, we got that black magic out there. If this is a night game, who knows? I mean, these fans are going to be amped up. They're going to be excited. This is going to be a real opportunity for Shane Beamer and company to break some hearts, crash a dream season, and don't kid yourselves. I mean, we all think this is going to be a win for Ole Miss, but this is life in the SEC. These are the games that sneak up and get you. Who knows what they have in Lenore Sellers. They think their quarterback is outstanding. He's a much more mobile guy than Spencer Rattler was last year. South Carolina brings back a ton on the defensive side of the football. They've added Rocket Sanders, the running back, the transfer from Arkansas, who led the league in rushing 2 years ago. So they have some nice pieces. But that all being said, Shane, it's very difficult for me to believe that Ole Miss is going to lose at South Carolina. So give me a win there. But again, these are tricky games. But I think these are the ones after basically starting to, like I said, I'm kind of kidding, but not really. The first month is a damn bye. This is where we're going to be learning about our team, Kentucky at South Carolina. And if we have warts, they're going to get exposed in these weeks. And we'll have to clean them up because we could probably show up with our B game and beat Kentucky and beat South Carolina and Columbia.
I think you talked a little too much about South Carolina in this one. Obviously, this isn't going to be a football game, but I do like the fact that it is Kentucky and South Carolina kind of back to back. It's not Vanderbilt, Mississippi State. So yes, you are top to bottom more talented than these programs, but again, you can learn from some mistakes being made in these first two games of SEC play. So, on the road, this is your first true road test, in my opinion, before you go to Death Valley. You know what I'm saying? So, this is a big win for Lane Kiffin and company.
Right. Well, and then here's a tricky one, Shane. At LSU, they're going to be out for blood. They're going to be out for revenge, and I don't believe this has been officially announced yet. It may have. I may have just. I mean, they threw 100 game times at us last week, and it may have slipped my memory at the moment. But from what I hear, Shane, this will be a night game, and it's going to be late as hell. Like I'm talking 8:30. I think it's 8:30 Central Time kick for Ole Miss at LSU. These fans are going to be drunk as hell. This is going to be quite the environment. I mean, this is going to be their first test to see if Ole Miss really is a college football playoff team. And I think LSU is going to give them every bit of fight they can handle, because this will be a game, I think, for LSU too.
Oh yeah,
that is going to have to, they're going to have to prove themselves. And if they make the college football playoff, it's going to be because they win this game right here.
Absolutely.
So Ole Miss, LSU, I mean, this truly is a coin toss type game. I think I'm actually pretty firm, Shane, that I think Ole Miss is a better team. But this is the one I'm most concerned about here heading to this point of the season. So, but I have also said, Shane, I'm not buying the LSU hype. I could be dead wrong. But give me Ole Miss here, but only by the slimmest of margins. Maybe like we're kicking a field goal as time expires. It would not surprise me at all if LSU wins this game. This is going to come down to the wire.
Mike, I'm kind of tipping my hat here. I'm thinking best case scenario, that there's probably a loss somewhere out there, and it's going to be this team. It may be Oklahoma. It may be the Georgia game. That there's one floating around, and you're hoping that there's not two. But this one right here, like you said, will be a test. It's always a test. These two teams, there's a reason that it's a night game. Everybody will be watching it. It's probably going to be one of the most enjoyable football games you've seen all season long. And going down to Death Valley is not an easy thing to do. but it is a thing that Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss Rebels are going to do as they go down there and get them a big victory. And I think this kind of puts them into that top 3 talk. You know what I'm saying? This is the one that we're starting to mention college football playoffs and the expansion and Heisman candidates. You know, I think this is a real good game for a guy like Jackson Dart to kind of have his Heisman moment if he's going to win it.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then the following week, Shane. Excuse me. They got 2 weeks to prepare, which is a nice
Absolutely.
break here for the Rebels. So I mean, again, let's say they lose LSU, or let's say they barely win. I mean, they're going to need the 2 weeks because Oklahoma, I really do think is going to be a good team, but they're coming to Oxford. Tricky game here. I'm really concerned about Oklahoma's offensive line, particularly with the defensive additions we made at Ole Miss. So I think we'll be able to get after Jackson Arnold. This is going to be a first one to 40 points in this ball game. I think it's going to be back and forth. It's going to be a wild showdown. But I kind of lean strongly towards Ole Miss on this one. I don't think it's as close as that LSU game, particularly given the fact we got 2 weeks to prepare. This is where Oklahoma finds out what real football in the SEC is all about.
I think if it's 1 week after the LSU game, and even I don't think necessarily at home, but it really would have helped if it were in Norman. I think there's a real good shot Oklahoma wins this one, but I'm with you, brother. I think 2 weeks to prepare, 2 weeks to kind of get some injured players some rest. I think this is where we're going to ramp up and have a big win here. So,
right.
Hey, I've got them undefeated right now, Mike.
Right. Well, and then we'll go to Arkansas the following week, Shane. You want to talk about a trap game right here. We're talking about Arkansas in Fayetteville. Lane Kiffin has yet to win in Fayetteville, Shane. They've added a new quarterback. They've added a Bobby Petrino. They've got the most returning receiving production in the SEC back, them Arkansas Razorbacks. So they could be a competent team, or they could have already fired Sam Pittman. It's tough to predict. I'm rooting for Arkansas. I want them to be better. I get it. This is one of my favorite things, Shane, where we as fans always kind of cling to, Lane Kiffin, he ain't won in Fayetteville yet. Well, if we blind these teams up today, I mean, Arkansas is probably a 21-point underdog. So it is playing at Arkansas, and they've already announced it, I believe, that this is going to be a noon game. Well, 11 a.m. kickoff for Central Time. So that's a horrible draw, I think, for Arkansas. If this was a night game, I'd be a little bit more concerned about it. But I think Ole Miss wins, and I think Ole Miss wins big in Fayetteville.
Well, this is one of those games you got to be careful. You call them whiffing. This is one of those that just sits out there, and all of a sudden it bites you. So I don't think that Ole Miss will – I don't think this will be a football game. I think it will be over by half. But you never know. You let a team like the Razorbacks hang in there, then all of a sudden you got yourself a little shootout, and that's the last thing you need going into that Georgia football game.
Ooh, buddy, and then that's what we get to. This could be the game of the year, Shane. If Georgia's undefeated,
oh, buddy,
if Ole Miss undefeated, November 9th in Oxford. College game day, that stupid Fox show, they'll probably be down there. They got nothing to do with it. But they're going to be here in the Grove. Everybody wants to go to the Grove for this epic showdown. Could be number 1, could be number 2. It's going to be one hell of a football game, Shane. And this, we're going to test it. Is Ole Miss elite of elite, playing against the Georgia Bulldogs? Last year we smoked them. Mm-hmm. And this has got to be motivation for Ole Miss all offseason. I mean, if I was Kiffin, that crazy bastard, he's probably got that game running 24/7 in the weight room if he knew what he was doing. You know what I mean? So I hope that's what he's doing. I hope we go down here. We're going to show the dogs a thing or two about what it's like to play football in the great state of Mississippi. Give me Georgia wins big.
Even optimistically?
Here's the thing, Shade. Yeah. I mean, I get it. Yeah. But Kirby, he gets his teams up for these games. I mean, they never have a damn egg unless they're playing Nick Saban in any of these big time games. I mean, you got to trick Georgia to think you're just, you're going to lay down and they're going to walk all over you. To me, it seems like that's the only way to beat Georgia in the regular season. They haven't lost a regular season game in 3. And I just can't get that game out of my head, Shane.
Yeah.
They ran for 500 yards. Carson Beck did not get touched. I get it. We've added players, this, that, and the other. I still think there's a gap. Now, you get to prove me wrong November 9th, but I lean heavily. I think we got to remember how elite Georgia really is.
Yeah, no, but big, you know what I'm saying? So I think that this is why you have the team you have now. You know, I've said it twice now already. You know, that game last year was the reason that Lane Kiffin came out and just pretty much told them boosters saying, hey, do you want to win or not? Because I need your help if we're going to. And now they have the team to do it, brother. And optimistically, I don't think there's a single fan out there that thinks going into that game they don't have a shot to win. But they lose. Unfortunately, I'm with you, Mike. And now, bear with me. Bear with me. There's an ultimate spin on this thing, Mike.
Yeah.
Lane plans it because he doesn't want to be in the SEC championship. He wants to give his boys an extra bye week before they go to the college football playoffs.
Yeah, you stole it from me, Shane. I was going to mention that. I just think, hell, yeah, you want to be undefeated. I get it, yada, yada, yada. But it may suit you better not to do it. And if you don't play in that SEC championship and you make the playoff, that means you're getting a home game.
Yeah.
In Oxford, in the college football playoff, if you finish the deal. So we'll get to that in just a second. But again, then you go at Florida. Now, this could be tricky, Shane. All the things we talked about with adversity and the locker room and all these moving pieces, how do they respond if they lose to Georgia? Again, who knows? They could beat Georgia for all I know. How will they handle the success? Because going to Florida, if you just beat Georgia, or hell, if you lost to them like we just predicted, this trip to Gainesville is going to be tricky.
Yeah.
We cannot have one loss turning into two. And this has happened under Lane Kiffin. So he's not immune to his team losing focus and things of that nature. Again, this is a new era. They'll still be firmly in the mix. And I expect Georgia will be number one. If you lose to them, you're probably still in the top five.
Right.
So you'll have everything in front of you. But tricky game. I like Florida. I think they win 7-8 football games this year. I really do. And hell, if they beat Ole Miss, they're getting a 9, Shane. I mean that. I think they're that caliber. But going on the road, we don't even know if Billy will still be the coach. I firmly believe he will be. But this is a game that cannot be overlooked.
Yeah.
And there ain't many times that Ole Miss has gone into the swamp and been favored. I think they will be here, but this is another one. I mean, LSU and Florida. I think Florida might even be a better team than LSU this year. I really do. I know that sounds crazy,
Dang.
but give me Ole Miss, but just, again, game-winning field goal to wins this one here.
Jeez Louise, all this Florida love. I just, is your landlord, is he a Florida Gator fan? Or
He gives me 10% off for everything nice I say here.
Oh, man. Here's the deal, man. Because we're going optimistically, and let's say I think you hit the nail on the head. Even if they beat them, it's a scary game because there's just that natural foot off the gas feeling when you're like, all right, man, we're cruise control, the SEC championship. And how many times do we see an SEC team sneak up and bite you? This Florida Gators do have a good team. I give them a hard time, but they've got a good enough roster to go toe-to-toe with Ole Miss to a certain extent, especially if they're not completely dialed in. But let's say worst case scenario, you drop an LSU or an Oklahoma or a Georgia, and now you're sitting there with 2 losses, maybe even 3, because there's going to be a couple of teams, on the fringe talking about 9-3 getting in. Yep. You can't lose to this one. This is a must win, and I think that's why I'm pretty confident that Lane Kiffin gets the boys rallied enough to get that win and have that shot to a college football playoff spot.
Yeah, and then so we wrap it up. Egg Bowl at home, Shane. My only question here: how long do they leave the starters on the field? Come on, we're whooping Mississippi State's ass in the Egg Bowl in Oxford. I mean, I'm talking 40-point blowout here if Lane wants it to. I think he'll go a little bit easier because he knows Jeff Lebby, all that. Even though I've heard there's some bad blood there, but I think he takes his foot off on the gas here in the fourth.
I don't think he does. I really don't. I think the fact like if me and you are playing, you know what I'm saying? I want you to rage quit. You know what I'm saying? I want you to throw your controller across the room as I put in, I stopped punting on fourth down, that kind of scenario. That's what I see happening here with this new rivalry renewed with Lebby and Lane Kiffin. So God rest his soul with the Pirate. I think I think there was a little bit of respect out there, kind of like that Nick Saban-ish, if you will. But I don't think we're going to see that with Lebby.
Right. So we both got them, Ole Miss, optimistically 11-1. You're gonna be a lock for the college football playoff if you get to 11. Maybe even the SEC championship. Who knows? I mean, if we'll see what Georgia does and Texas and on and on and on. But 11-1 ain't going to eliminate you from, particularly if Georgia's undefeated and they're already in there. You may have to rematch them in Atlanta. So that's on the table. But let me ask you as we wrap up here, Shane, like we always like to do, most important games, the three most important games to win for Ole Miss. I don't even have Georgia on there, believe it or not. Now, beating Georgia. Yes, you would claim you are a legitimate national championship contender. You'd probably lock up a spot in the SEC championship. There is a lot to gain. But I think for Ole Miss, I think it's much more important, number one on my list, Shane, that you beat LSU on the road. I think that'll be the first true test of what this team is. And maybe not the first true test, but that'll prove to me that this is a championship contender.
No, championship team. Championship teams win games like this on the road, hostile environment to another top 15 powerhouse, So absolutely, this is a must win.
And I got number 2, Shane. I got Oklahoma right after that LSU because, again, I think Oklahoma's going to be sneaky good. That's one that could sneak up on you. You got 2 weeks to prepare. Imagine having 2 weeks to prepare and dropping it at home. Before the Georgia game, I think you got to have all the momentum in the world going into that Georgia matchup. So give me Oklahoma, number 2 most important game to win.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Ole Miss can get into the playoffs with 10 wins, but it would be hard to do it at 9. And I think Oklahoma could be that potential ninth win, or a third loss, if you will. So right. I've got them on my list as well.
And then number 3, you may disagree here, Shane, but I say Kentucky because I think this will be a trap game. This will be our first SEC. We've got to start on the right foot, get some momentum early in the season. If we drop then again the season won't be over.
Yeah,
but. Man, you almost have to run the table. Again, maybe that's not fair, but really, your margin for error really takes a big hit if you're dropping to Kentucky. Considering all these transfers, all these new pieces, I just think that's a paramount game that is being overlooked by many people.
I'm going to switch it up to your Florida Gators. I just think that it's a pivotal spot in the schedule. Yeah. It's at the end of the season. People are talking about who's in, who's out. It's tough for me to just maybe a 10-win season, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, they lost to the Florida Gators though. How can we put them in? So and nothing against the Florida Gators. I think they got a tough road. I think they'll have a tough schedule, but I don't think they'll be a top 10 opponent when they face each other. You know what I'm saying? And if you're an outside voter that's looking in, that's the way you're going to look at it. So I just, whether you beat Georgia or lose to Georgia, there's going to be a natural hangover effect one way or the other, and you're going to a crazy place. It's a loud, hostile environment, and you just never know. Talk to Mizzou. Mizzou almost dropped it last year with this Florida Gators late in the season.
No disrespect to Florida, but we ain't putting you in if you lose to Florida. The man just said that. That is the most disrespectall thing you can say about a team, Shane. But
I am to Florida as you are to Auburn right now, Mike.
But all right, hey, buddy, that's all we got on this episode. Another fall camp preview in the books. Ole Miss Rebels. Go back and check it out if you missed Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri. Now we're on to Ole Miss, so we're down. We got 4 in the books. We got 12 more to go. Anything else before we hop off the line, buddy?
No, that's it. I appreciate everybody hanging out with us, and we'll be on tomorrow with a brand new team.
Yeah. All right. We appreciate you. If you made it this far, like, subscribe, share. Thank you so much. And your team, if we haven't got to it yet, we'll get to you pretty soon. But that's going to do it for this episode. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right, see you guys. Hotty toddy.